Welcome to our first video lecture of our next mini unit. We are still in Unit 2, but we are focusing on this portion of the unit is going to be on problem solving and intelligence. So today we are going to look at the first part of Module 2.2a, which is going to help us understand how do we organize our thinking. So the first thing that I want you to do, I want you to take a second and I want you to picture a chair. Close your eyes. Picture a chair. What do you see? Okay, keep that little nugget in the side of your head. Now I want you to do the same thing, but this time I want you to picture a dog. Close your eyes. What do you visualize when you visualize a dog? So, in this activity, when I asked you to close your eyes and picture a chair or picture a dog, what I was asking you to do is to essentially come up with what is the first visual you have in your mind for that topic, for that category. So that category, dogs, within that category, you have a specific prototype. And that prototype is the dog that you think of when you first are asked to picture a dog. So in our minds, we have a bunch of concepts. These concepts are kind of our mental grouping. It's our mental categorization of information. So for example, if I asked you to come up with, we have concepts of fruits. Within our concept of fruit, we have all the different fruits we can think of: apples, oranges, bananas, plums, kiwis, peaches, nectarines. That concept of fruit, within that concept, we have all those different fruits. We also have a concept of dogs. Within our concept of dogs, we have all different types of dogs. We might have golden doodles, golden retrievers, pit bulls. We may have chihuahuas, all fitting under our concept or category, which is dogs. We also have a concept of chairs. Within our concept of chairs, that might include like a beach chair, it might be a rocking chair, it might be a chair that we sit on at work, it might be a stool. We have all sorts of different examples of what that is. So our concepts are our way that we kind of understand and we organize and we group things together into different categories. Within that organization and that categorization, we have a prototype. And the prototype is our mental image of the best example or the most typical example of our concept or of our category. So when I asked you to think of a chair, right, I asked you to pull out that concept you have of what a chair is and picture a chair. That first thing that you pictured is your prototype. Right? So you use that prototype to compare every other chair that you see in your world to that prototype to see, does that chair match that prototype and fit under that concept or that category of chairs? Same thing with the dog, right? We have a concept of dogs, right? We then have a prototype, which is the first thing that we visualize when we think about dogs. That is our prototype. So every dog we encounter, we compare that dog to our prototype of a dog to determine whether or not it fits within the organizational category that we have for dogs. So this is just our mental organizational system that we have in our brain. A subset of this is called schemas. And schemas is a vocabulary term that was developed by a man named Jean Piaget, who studied the cognitive development in children. We're going to talk more about him in a later unit. But with regards to him, he identified this vocabulary word called schemas. And our schemas are very similar to our concepts. The difference being is that schemas go beyond our concepts. So we have a concept of a dog, right? Within that concept of a dog, we have things like what types of dogs exist within that, right? So that is our concept. Our schema of a dog, on the other hand, This is more complex, detailed framework that incorporates not only our concept, but also our personal experiences, our specific knowledge, our expectations relating to dogs. So schemas are kind of this rich set of information we have about dogs, about their behavior, about their types, about how we care for them, about the roles that they play, often even our cultural associations. So while our concept is very small and very much focuses on essentially what is a dog, what are different types of dogs, our schema involves not only that, but also all the information that we have related to dogs. So our schema for a dog might include something like dogs can be small, like Chihuahuas, or large, like Great Danes. Dogs need to be fed, exercised, and groomed. Dogs are loyal. They can be trained to follow commands like sit or stay. There's working dogs, there's police dogs, there's service dogs, there's pets as dogs. Dogs can be playful, dogs can be protective, dogs can be calm. Different breeds show different types of dogs that come out. We also might think about in our schemas, caring for dogs includes regular vet visits, vaccinations, possibly grooming. So our schema, while it's similar to concepts, it is a much larger container of information that we hold. So one way that oftentimes we think about schemas, Piaget's schemas, is a file folder system. That in our brain, we have file cabinets. Within those file cabinets, we have files that we can pull out. And so when we pull out the file on dogs, we pull out all this rich information we have about dogs, not just our concept of dog, but other information about dogs, like caring for them, grooming for them, what their purpose is, what they do, how we take care of them. All of that together falls within that file folder about dogs. So they're similar, but different, right? And concepts was not a term that was coined by Jean Piaget. So it's a separate entity, but I want you to understand where kind of the connection lies. Within those schemas, Piaget believed that when we're children, this is our time when we are developing our schemas, right? This is the time when we are adding to those file folders, we're taking away from those file folders, we're creating new file folders. And so childhood is this time of being exposed to a whole lot of new information. And we have to figure out as children how to organize that information. Do we put that new piece of information, that new thing that we see or experience, into a folder we already have? Or do we need to create another folder to house that information? Piaget called this process assimilation or accommodation. So let's take, for example, a child has a schema about a restaurant, right? So in their original schema of a restaurant, they have always seen it as a restaurant has always been a sit-down place where you're served by wait staff, you choose from a menu, and then that stuff is brought to your table. You never thought about any other dining experience, or maybe you've never experienced one. You know, we're talking about a child for the first time. So a child for the very first time goes to a buffet style restaurant, like a Golden Corral, where all of a sudden you go up and you have to serve yourself that food. And you go and do that buffet style. Well, that doesn't mesh with what's in their original file folder of restaurant. So with this new information, with this new experience, they have to figure out, are they going to take that experience, stick it into that original folder, or am I going to make a new folder? Well, this child, let's say, accommodates for that information or goes through the process called accommodation. So after they experience this buffet style restaurant and that it doesn't fit their schema or their folder of restaurant, what they're going to do is they are going to accommodate by creating a new file folder to make sense of the world around them. So that they are going to have a sit down restaurant folder and they are going to have a self-serve restaurant folder. So within their self-serve restaurant folder, they are going to stick Golden Corral in that. And then they're going to have their other folder for sit-down restaurant, where those sit down restaurants that they've been to, those are going to go into that folder. So now they have two different folders. Well, let's take child number 2. Again, child number 2 has this same thing. They have this concept of a restaurant, a place where you sit down, you look at a menu, you order it, and the waitress or waiter brings you that food. One day, the first time, that child goes to a restaurant like Chipotle, where you go up to the counter and order your food. So that child now is faced with new information, right? When they open their file folder for restaurant, they don't have you go up and order your food in that file folder. So they have to decide what they're going to do. This child decides to assimilate, meaning they are going to take Chipotle and they are going to stick it in their restaurant folder and they are going to call it a restaurant, and they just have expanded their idea of what a restaurant is. So they are going to force Chipotle into that category and say Chipotle is a restaurant. So child 1 accommodated. They now, instead of just having restaurant, they now have created a folder for sit-down restaurants and self-serve restaurants. Child number 2, when given new information, has assimilated it. They just have put that and forced it to fit into the folder that they already have. So this is Piaget's idea of what children do, how children organize and understand their world, how we all organize and understand our world, and what we do when we have new information. We, as humans, don't like to just have free-floating information. We like information to fit in a category. We like information to be organized, to relate to something else. Otherwise, we don't have an understanding of that new experience, that new vocabulary, that new animal, unless we can figure out a way that it can organize and be divided or subdivided. And that's that process of assimilation or accommodation. Finally, this idea of metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about our thinking. So when we are planning, assessing, trying to understand our performance, when we examine and adjust these concepts or these prototypes or these schemas, when we assimilate or accommodate this information, right? When we are changing and adjusting these mental frameworks, this is a process called metacognition, right? Where we are thinking about our thinking. We are reflecting. We are moving information. We are evaluating information. We are organizing information. This is that metacognition cycle. We also think about metacognition when we are trying to plan out how we are going to successfully get tasks done, right? We might, in our minds, think about what are some of the strengths and weaknesses to this plan. We might then adjust our plan, make the plan. We might then apply it, and then we reflect on that. All that thinking that we've done, that's the metacognitive process that's occurring. And so a part of metacognition is evaluating and adjusting our concepts and our prototypes and our schemas so that they are constantly changing to fit what our needs are at that particular moment. That is it for today. Have a wonderful day.